Good evening from New York. I'm Dan Rather with news, analysis, and commentary. President Trump is the first U.S. president in history to hold direct face-to-face talks with a North Korean leader. At stake, a nuclear arsenal capable of reaching vital U.S. allies and potentially the United States itself. An arsenal in the hands of a national leader who wields total control, uses violent rhetoric to threaten his enemies, carries out cyber attacks, and commits human rights abuses. His arsenal is believed to consist of 60 bombs, with North Korea capable of producing 6 more every year. Kim's government also claims to have produced a hydrogen bomb. The country has intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching North America. Whether Kim can build nuclear weapons small enough to launch atop his missiles remains a subject of debate. Those who think he cannot are debating when he will. The United States has anti-missile systems to intercept and take out such missiles mid-air. Japan and South Korea have similar systems. How well any of them work is also up for debate. Kim Jong-un represents the third generation of his family to run North Korea. The Kim dynasty has spent billions of dollars to achieve membership in the Club of Nuclear Nations, a club that has so far enjoyed immunity from the fates that befell non-members such as Muammar Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. 3 U.S. presidents of both parties have tried for 2 decades to push or persuade the Kims off the path to nuclear weaponry. All of them failed. China, Kim's closest ally, failed. South Korea also failed. And while the United States sees North Korea as a threat to the almost 30,000 American troops still stationed in South Korea, Kim surely sees those troops as a threat to him. This is all a stubborn knot that has defied global efforts at resolution for decades. Boiled down to 2 men in a room, face to face, deciding second by second what the other one wants, what he means, whether he's honest. All of which makes precise words and precise meanings of utmost importance, because reducing terms and definitions to their simplest form makes it hard to determine what you're really talking about, and therefore whether you're serious. If you ask, for instance, will you denuclearize, and Kim says yes, what does that mean? Destroy existing nuclear weapons? Only those capable of launch? End construction of new ones? End civilian nuclear enrichment? When? For how long? Without mastering the details, you cannot know what the other is even talking about, let alone whether he means it. Despite this complexity, despite these stakes, despite the privilege and responsibility of representing the United States in these talks, President Trump headed for Singapore saying, quote, "I don't think I have to prepare very much. It's about attitude," unquote. Where other world leaders have failed, Mr. Trump said he could tell Kim's intentions in seconds.
How long do you think it would take you to figure out whether he's serious about giving
Good
up?
question. How long would it take? I think within the first minute, I'll know.
How?
My touch, my feel. That's what I do. How long will it take to figure out whether or not they're serious? I said maybe in the first minute. You know, the way they say that you know if you're going to like somebody in the first 5 seconds. You ever hear that one? Well, I think that very quickly I'll know whether or not something good is going to happen. I also think I'll know whether or not it will happen fast. May not, but I think I'll know pretty quickly whether or not, in my opinion, something positive will happen. And if I think it won't happen, I'm not going to waste my time. I don't want to waste his time.
Of course, the point of talks like this is not just to gauge the other's intentions. The point is mostly to change their intentions by discerning what they want and don't want, and then creating trade-offs that maximize what each side gets. No one should be surprised if President Trump redefines success to cover whatever comes out of this summit. But consciously or not, President Trump has set this up to be a failure, absolving himself in advance by rejecting the notion that he had work to do, work he not only failed to do, but seems incapable of doing. If that moves the world closer to war, that failure will be on him. President Trump arrived in Singapore for the North Korea talks after leaving early from the summit in Canada of the G7 industrialized nations. On Sunday, top White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow said that President Trump was refusing to sign the joint statement from the G7 because of North Korea. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, it turned out, had pushed back on U.S. tariffs, and that would make the U.S. look weak coming to the table with North Korea.
POTUS is not going to let a Canadian Prime Minister push him, POTUS, around President Trump on the eve of this. He is not going to permit any show of weakness on the trip to negotiate with North Korea, nor should he.
So this was about North Korea?
Of course it was, in large part.
Now, let's think about it for just a moment. Considering that the president had said he did not need to prepare for the North Korea talks because he could tell Kim Jong-un's intentions in 5 seconds, it's not clear why a show of U.S. weakness would matter. And Mr. Kudlow didn't explain how it strengthened Mr. Trump's bargaining position to alienate the United States from its closest allies. Mr. Kudlow also did not explain how it strengthened Mr. Trump's bargaining position to blow up the bargain he had just agreed to at the talks he had just arrived from. But while many observers noted in a widely seen photograph from the G7 the distance between the U.S. and its allies, another less seen picture told a more important story, because the G7 summit was about something. Important matters that concern us all, not just tariffs and trade, but oceans and air, energy and equality. Gender equality in particular was one area where the world's leading nations reached consensus, or thought they had. The photo we're seeing on this issue shows President Trump at a meeting on gender equality, along with Angela Merkel of Germany, hidden there behind IMF Director Christine Lagarde, along with NATO Commandant Christine Whitecross and Winnie Byanyima of Oxfam International. The women are sitting because the session was already underway. President Trump is standing because he's just arriving, late. An effective way of expressing your intentions in less than 5 seconds. So, how does Russia favor and factor into the divisions at the GN? Well, at G7 meetings on my mind, and I'll talk about it with you next. I see what we all see. The deep divisions, the endemic injustices, the uncertainty about our future. We have sometimes stumbled. We have sometimes fallen short. But we can renew our national purpose if we recognize that what unites us is far greater and stronger than all that divides us.
Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently.
So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history.
President Trump's decision to break with America's allies on trade and other issues came one day after his director of national intelligence warned that Russia wants to divide the West. Vladimir Putin has said he wants Europe united and prosperous because Russia sells so much oil and other products to Europe. But no nation wants its top customers too united, especially not a nation with both regional ambitions and the military muscle to achieve them if the opposition stands in disarray. The director of U.S. National Intelligence, Dan Coats, referred to Russia's aggression, alleged assassination attempts, and efforts to influence voters in other nations. He said, quote, "These Russian actions are purposeful and premeditated, and they represent an all-out assault by Vladimir Putin on the rule of law, Western ideals, and democratic norms," unquote. The following day, President Trump called for letting Russia rejoin the G7 top industrial nations. But Mr. Coats had another warning on Friday. He warned that Russia is trying to meddle again with America's elections. This time, the 2018 midterm elections, now 5 months away. States must protect the integrity of the vote, returning to paper ballots, if that's what's called for. But we, as Americans, must preserve the integrity of our vote as well. Because the greatest danger is not that Russia might alter our votes once cast. It's that Russia, anyone without our best interests at heart, might alter how we think about our vote. They want to influence our thinking. Here are 7 things we can do to inoculate ourselves against attempts to influence our vote, undermine democracy, or divide our country. Number 1, be skeptical. Remember, someone out there is writing things they want and they know that you want to be true. That's one of the keys. They write things that they know you want to be true. So be skeptical. Number 2, do the work. If you believe something enough to tell others to read it, first make sure it's true. If you don't know how to check it out, keep it to yourself. Number 3, ignore the shiny object. It's fun to debate what President Trump really thinks, who people really are, what will happen or why. But some people don't have that luxury, and they need your help now. So step up. Number 4, focus on what matters. Legislation is being written in Congress or dictated right now. Judges are taking the bench. Real lives are at stake. If you care about the symbolism of disinviting sports teams to the White House, care even more about the real effects of what it symbolizes. Number 5, reject division. Assume good faith until proven otherwise. Number 6, reach out. Yes, reject evil, argue with bad ideas, but reach out to those in their sway. The news is full of stories of people who saw the light and stepped away from hate. The walls we build to keep out hatred must leave a path for people to escape it. And finally, know your history. We have been in bad times before. We have in the past survived these convulsions of division and fear. We've done it by rejecting division and fear. We'll do so again. If you want to know what issues we really should be focused on, issues that your favorite news outlet might not have mentioned, consider this. The Justice Department of the United States has told Congress now that it is joining 20 states that oppose Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Specifically, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said that the Justice Department will not only stop defending Obamacare in court, the administration will now ask the courts to let insurance companies deny coverage to sick people, charge other sick people higher premiums based on their health, and charge more to old people and women whose health needs are more expensive. And as of January 1st, 2019, the administration will no longer require everyone to have insurance. That means a lot of people will drop it, which means insurance companies will try to make up the difference elsewhere with higher premiums for everyone, sick or healthy. Insurance companies are right now calculating rates for 2019. And this news is a blast of rocket fuel on the dumpster fire we call health insurance in this country. How many people are we talking about? Writing for the LA Times, Michael Hiltzik reports that the number of people with conditions that could have led them to be denied coverage or pay exorbitant amounts for it before Obamacare was 133 million people. This is what a real crisis looks like, folks. Arguing over stupid tweets belongs light years back in the rearview mirror as America's sick and old and needy rocket towards a black hole that will mean literal life or death for far too many, and the return of medical bankruptcy for millions of people. This fight is not over yet. 3 lawyers inside the Justice Department reportedly withdrew from the case, apparently to protest this decision by Sessions and the president that will do predictable, avoidable harm to so many of America's most vulnerable. Now, however, the fate of those 133 million lies in the hands of 16 states and the District of Columbia, who are battling in court to defend the law. It lies in their hands and in ours. It's now June. The new policies are set to take place in January. Smack in the middle comes November, and with it, Election Day. Remember, we're talking about 133 million people. That's 4 million more than the number of people who voted for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton combined. Next, I want to tell you how American officials are separating asylum seekers from their children at the border. I'll do it after first please these messages.
Do you trust the establishment media?
The United States economy has never been better. Monetary policy is spectacular.
Everybody thought Jamie Dimon was the king of Wall Street last week. Well, it might be Ken Lewis now. He takes the crown. The best sales force out there is Merrill Lynch, and now it goes to BofA. It's pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing. Lewis now. Buying opportunity.
I do think this is a buying opportunity. We're going to see a stabilization and just a tremendous snapback.
The rally will be jaw-dropping.
The Occupy Wall Street movement is not a spontaneous protest against economic inequality.
This is what we mean by the establishment press.
It is a well-thought-out campaign.
To bring down the infrastructure of this country.
The embarrassment is that I'm given credibility in this world because of the disappointment that the public has in what the news media does.
I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee, and I learned a little bit about the cost of war. What the president is trying to do, and I agree with him, is to do everything that we can without going to war.
So what do you say to your critics? I'm talking about Democratic critics who say, you know what, he's really just a socialist pacifist.
I very rarely read in any coverage of Bernie that he's a socialist.
Bernie Sanders is a socialist, for God's sake.
Most analysts are saying that Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president.
We've got Trump at 279, 259.
Wait a minute. No. Winning the presidency. I know you don't believe that. Sorry to laugh. We're not going to be polite anymore. You know what we're going to do? We're going to fight back.
Fight for a free and independent media. We're done with politeness. We fight back.
Imagine leaving your home because criminal gangs want to recruit your children, traveling hundreds of miles to seek asylum in the land of the free. An American meets you at the border and takes you to a makeshift shelter, feeds you, takes your kids to go clean up, take a bath. You fill out some paperwork, tell your story. Hours later, you realize your kids haven't come back. Then another American tells you they're not coming back. They're gone. And they'll be sent to live with another family or housed at another facility. That scenario emerged from multiple reports this weekend, from public defenders, observers, academics, talking to asylum seekers. America is not just splitting up families, but lying to the parents to do so, exploiting their trust, betraying their trust, denying parents a chance to appeal, to explain, to say goodbye, all in the name of fighting crime, preventing terrorism. Beware, Nietzsche said, lest he who fights monsters in so doing becomes a monster. We have tortured in the name of fighting terrorism. We've invaded countries in the name of preventing terrorism, and now betray those who come to us seeking aid and succor. Just today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions decided that domestic violence victims and victims of gang violence will no longer qualify for asylum. 9/11 gave rise to well-founded fears, fears which, as it turned out, panicked us and, yes, in some ways terrorized us into horrific mistakes. History's judgment of our reaction grows less kind every year. And when history turns its gaze to this present day, it will see us too moving toward monstrosity. The difference this time is that there is no threat, no crime wave, no terror plot we know of. This time, the monster rearing his head is us. But America is not just American immigration officials and their private contractors. America, too, is American public defenders, academics, observers, and journalists telling these stories. America is politicians and protesters taking a stand. It is everyday citizens donating money, volunteering, doing what they can. They are not letting fear drive them, because the land of the free can choose to be a monster, but the home of the brave never will. My thoughts on Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un coming up next.
I know what you're thinking.
I love how you do something with your lips when you play the sound clips.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Look at his
I
lips.
was a woman.
No, you're closing your mouth. Usually I'll be like, and I'm like, is he like lip syncing it?
I don't know. I never noticed it until you said it.
It's a funny habit.
It's not human intelligence!
TYT member.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently.
So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017.
Right.
Finally tonight, as President Trump goes through his meeting or meetings with the North Korean leader, two thoughts come to mind. One is that our president has at his side, advising him, not the best, most experienced American experts on Asia. Instead, he has a recently appointed Secretary of State who is, by all appearances, woefully unknowledgeable and inexperienced about Asia, and a coterie of others who are not America's best. The other thought is the importance to Kim Jong-un of saving face, roughly the importance of optics and how he is made to appear in the opinion of others. On this score, Kim is already a big winner, at least as he sees it and as much as the world sees it. Kim has forced the most powerful man in the world to sit down and negotiate with him. Now it is up to Mr. Trump to emerge with at least the appearance of also being a, quote, winner. For both leaders, for the moment, the details of whatever long-range agreement is or is not reached are less important than the optics and saving face. It's a strange time we're living through in this country, an unprecedented one. There's never been anything like it in our history. Our president praises and courts our rivals, and in some cases our sworn enemies. At the same time, he criticizes, sometimes outright insults, our longtime friends and allies. At least on the surface, the appearance is that of an effort to weaken the Western alliance, if not downright dismantle it, while strengthening opposing powers such as Russia and China. With Western-led institutions such as NATO and the G7, Mr. Trump has been a kind of one-man wrecking crew. He gives the back of his hand, at worst, to friends, neighbors, and allies such as Canada, and Mexico, while making nice and promoting the interests of Russia, China, and North Korea. He prides himself in not reading, not preparing, but instead always, quote, winging it. That is, sort of making it up as he goes along, raising the question of whether this is any way to conduct foreign policy, or for that matter, any policy. It's a one-man show, with him out there on a smile, a shoe shine, and a loud tie, representing this, our land of the Pilgrim's pride, land where our fathers died, now the greatest combined economic and military power the world has ever known. All of which may lead millions of Americans to mutter some version of God help us. But it is what it is, and we have to deal with it. Who knows, maybe it will turn out all right. Let us hope. And if you're so inclined, pray for us. With that, I'll leave you for this news cycle. The Young Turks is next, and we'll be back with the news at this same place and time, 5:30 Eastern, every Monday. Until then, Dan Rather reporting. Stay steady.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. Some of the best writers in the country are right here on this panel, with the obvious exception of John Iadarola.
Let's not so quickly discount Harry Potter fan fiction.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
What ran me away from Christianity was judgment and condemnation.
Assaulting peaceful protesters in North Dakota, crazier than bombing Yemen, crazier than bombing Syria so much they ran out of bombs.
Reductive interpretation of what their motives are, what Putin's are, by these amateur experts is just beyond.
We don't kill our journalists, and they do.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I want to do a YouTube live clip, but not live. Go.
I see what we all see. The deep divisions, the endemic injustices, the uncertainty about our future. We have sometimes stumbled. We have sometimes fallen short. But we can renew our national purpose if we recognize that what unites us is far greater and stronger than all that divides us.
Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews, and we've done some amazing ones recently.
So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history.